Gentlemen, it is now 6 o'clock. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the BZA to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Stone. Here. Mr. Brumfield.
Here.
Mr. Yeaman.
Here.
Mr. Easley.
Here.
Ms. Warren.
Here.
Mr. Craddock.
Here.
Mr. Merricks.
Here. At this time, we'd like to stand and have a moment of silence, and also after that, have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, you have the agenda in front of you. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Approved by Mr. Yeaman, second by
Second.
Mr. Brumfield. We gotta look at this one. All right, that passed. You have the minutes of the previous meeting, October meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Do you hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mr. Stone, second.
Second.
Mr. Craddock, cast your vote. All right, thank you very much. Old business. Do we have any old business?
Just to let you all know, the Board of Supervisors will have a public hearing for the adoption of the proposed zoning ordinance at their Tuesday meeting. So if adopted, it'll go into effect January 1.
All right. Any new business?
We do not have any new business.
We do have a meeting in December.
That's correct, we do.
There's no chairman's report. The time is 6:02. At this time, we'll open public hearing to S24-018. Ms. Ragsdale.
Case S-24-018, Anchorstone Advisors, SOVA, LLC, has petitioned for a special use permit on a total of 945.79 acres located on and off of U.S. Highway 29 and State Road 735 Cedar Road in the Dane River Election District to allow for a data center complex in accordance with Pennsylvania County Code, Section 35-403. On October 1st, 2024, the Planning Commission recommended by a 6-0 vote with opposition that the petitioner's request be granted with the conditions recommended by staff. Staff summaries enclosed in the board packet. Mr. Chairman, Tom Gallagher is here to represent the petition.
All right, Mr. Guy, before you come up, I want to read the precepts and make sure we understand tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, pursuant to Article 5, Division 7 of the Pittsylvania County Zoning Ordinance, we, the Board of Zoning Appeals, have been empowered to hear and decide specific applications and appeals in support of said ordinance. In accomplishing this important task, we are charged with promoting the health, safety, and general welfare of the citizens of Pittsylvania County. We must ensure that all our decisions and recommendations be directed to these goals and that each be consistent with the environmental comprehensive plan and in the best interest of Pittsylvania County citizens and its posterity. Anyone here to speak to the board other than the applicant regarding zoning cases will be limited to 3 minutes. Mr. Guy, come forward.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tom Gallagher. I'm one of the partners with the applicant, and you've got the package in front of you. I'm going to run through this fairly quickly, but there are a few things I want to hit on. I appreciate the opportunity to present. We appreciate everybody who is in attendance. And with that, so the applicant is seeking this approval to construct the first data center in Pennsylvania County. That's the general location of the site. Familiar with it's 58, right off Cane Creek. Data centers, digital library, you've heard a lot more about them lately. Everybody's got a cell phone. Inside, it's just a lot of tech equipment, a lot of servers. These are some examples. One thing I'll point out, I'm going to flip back to, sorry. All right. On the conceptual layout you look at, the one thing that we've done, and via the site conditions and the proffers, is we've created a lot of buffer space on the perimeter. So we'll be developing probably about half of the land that would be subject to this zoning. So we are in very good shape from a buffer, minimizing any impact on adjacent neighbors. With that, I'm going to flip up to one of the key things that we've focused on. It's come up, and that is light pollution. So we've got both data centers that create some light, but they don't create any more light than you would otherwise have. And we've committed within the proffers and what they call dark sky principles. All right, and everybody's moving to it. And the other thing I will say is that data centers are not interested in paying for any more energy than they have to. They already pay for a lot, and they pay a lot for it. The dark sky principles basically there's 4 of them, and it's about just minimizing the amount of light that you use, okay? Minimize the areas of illumination. In a data center context, what that means is a lot of shields and light diverters. So stuff goes down. Nobody wants to light the sky up above, but for security and safety purposes, that's what the lighting will be used for. So you have down lights, and then you limit the time. So to the extent that, kind of like for your garage, out my driveway, the light goes off at 1 o'clock and doesn't come back on until the following. I had to change it in an hour the other day. And then also with new technology, you use warm colored lighting, which is like 3,000 kelvins if you're in the lighting world, which is a lower heat. Obviously, there's a huge tax benefit to the county. Data centers are a low impact, high revenue source. They do, so from a services standpoint, it's not that they don't take any services, but from it, there's no schools, there's no traffic relatively. It doesn't even meet the threshold for a traffic impact analysis based on the trips that are generated. And so it's a great revenue source. It would be good for the county, not only to have a data center in the county, but more from a revenue source and diversifying the revenue sources in the county. Talked about the location. Obviously, it's surrounded by Cane Creek, industrial parks. From a zoning standpoint, we've opted out and committed to not develop certain things, but we're talking about a data center. So the traffic planning, the most of the traffic that's going to be impactful to this data center is going to be during construction. At the end of the day, with a full build out, you'll be probably talking about maybe 200, 300 employees. So it's really during construction, and what we've committed to is working with VDOT, but a construction maintenance of traffic and construction management plan that would minimize the impact, and everything would be coming in off of 58. And the last thing I want to just touch base on is on the noise. There's been a lot of information put out regarding the noise. We've pursuant to proffers in the zoning ordinance, we're at 65 decibels at the property line. We can't be any louder than that, which is frankly lower than what I'm talking right now. This normal conversation is 65 decibels. So again, because of the way we're buffered, because of our commitment to maintain the forest stand or supplement as necessary on the perimeter, the noise we do not foresee is going to be an issue. And if it violates the ordinance, then we would be shut down. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
How long is the construction process anticipated?
Well, it will be built in phases. All right, so I would expect that the first phase, and part of this is obviously, you won't see construction, it'll be, we got a bunch of permitting to go through, so it'll be, a year before you see it. So the first phase, depending on how the electricity is phased in, no pun intended, you're probably looking at 18 months, maybe for the first phase where you'd have construction traffic. And then after that, depending on how it builds out, you would either see you'd have a break for a period of time, or it would continue on.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, you mentioned that there would be about 200 jobs, and also you mentioned the tax revenue. I didn't know if you had an estimate of that for us. And then the three questions, the third one was, is there some initial construction or grading going on the project now, and is that a part of what you all are doing, or is that not?
No, anything going on there now is unrelated to us. So I'll take them in reverse order.
The 200 jobs, just verifying that, is that not including construction? That's after?
That's permanent jobs. And they would be, and I don't know the exact range, but they'd be higher paying jobs. These are service technicians, people that would be providing service for the data center itself, as well as obviously, building maintenance and other things. But it would really, the jobs, the majority of jobs will be, high-tech oriented.
In tax revenue, you didn't have an estimate on that?
No, and because it ties to like how it builds out, when it builds out, but in general terms, and the best I can give you is what, Hanover County, because they went through an analysis, and they were talking about 1.78 billion over 20 years. And it really is because the way data centers work and how they're taxed, like it's unique because all of that equipment that they put in there is taxed, and it's a lot of expense. It's millions and millions of dollars of equipment. So, which is the inherent benefit from a low impact, high revenue standpoint.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You mentioned the noise issue. Tell us again the noise level. That's always a concern for neighbors. I know it's a busy area out there, but there are still residential properties surrounding that property, and that's lighting you had addressed, and I think Mr. Chairman wants to speak on the lighting a little bit more, but the noise invariably becomes a concern, and if you will, just tell me a little bit more about the noise.
So data centers are not a high noise producer inherently, but they have cooling systems, they have HVAC systems, depending on what technique or technology they use. So they do create some noise, but it's not a manufacturing facility. There's not a lot of truck traffic. There's not a lot of the other things that you would normally see that would create more of but more importantly, in this specific case with this site, because of the buffers that we have, and because by law we cannot exceed 65, which is a normal conversation. So at the property line, we cannot exceed 65 decibels. I don't know if that answers your question, but they're...
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Cowell? Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone signed up to speak tonight?
Ann Smith.
Good evening, Ms. Smith. If you don't mind, pull the mic down. Thank you.
Good evening. I have spoken 4 different times against this data center project. To the Board of Supervisors, to the Planning Commission. I'm Ann Smith. I live adjacent to this proposed data center project on Cedar Road. I am here again to say that I strongly oppose this facility going in to disrupt the lives of many residents, taxpayers, and citizens of Pittsylvania County. This property was a beautiful tree farm. Now, I want to address this noise issue, this lighting issue. If you go to Boyington, Virginia, there's a data center there. Go at night. See how it's lit up. It's lit up like Las Vegas or New York City. The noise you can hear 2 miles away. It's a constant buzz. It would drive you insane if it was in your backyard. Now, Pittsylvania County will never be the same, and people will not want to move here due to the data centers, the power gas plants, and the battery storage facilities. What is happening here is not progress, as Mrs. Janice Mead alluded to in the Planning Commission meeting. It's pure greed for tax money. It's not considering the citizens. What do you stand for? The people or big companies that will destroy so much beautiful land? Think about what you're doing and what your children and your grandchildren will have to contend with, or do you want them just to move away? Please remember the green fields and the trees. When you were growing up, let your children and your grandchildren experience this. Please listen to the people fighting to stop this. They are not wrong. 20 to 30 years from now, it will be proven to be true. Don't let this happen because of money. I plead and appeal with you to vote no on this project, as well as the request of Balico and others trying to rezone nearly 2,300 acres north of Chatham in the chalk level area. I know what these people are going through. I know they have pulled their application, but they will reapply. I plead with you to say no on all of these data centers, power plants, and the battery storage plants. It appears to me that companies looking for land are picking Pittsylvania County. I'm not sure if they believe that our county leaders will approve almost anything for tax revenue. One question I have is, if all of this is approved, will property taxes be eliminated since you'll be getting so much tax revenue? God gave us this beautiful earth to enjoy, not to be destroyed by mankind. You think about what you're doing for future generations, and please vote no on these projects for the sake of the land and the citizens that live around them and have called them home for many years. Please remember some of the things I have said tonight. Let your conscience be your God. I appreciate your time and listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for me?
No, ma'am.
No? Thank you.
Linda Brooks Galden.
All right. Time is 6:18.
Hello, my name is Linda Brooks Galden. I live in the Dam River District of Pennsylvania County. I'm here again opposing Anchorstone LLC from obtaining permits for a proposed data center off 58 East and the Cedar Road in the Mountain Hill community where I live. Since the Anchorstone LLC advisors are just the middlemen in the project, they have been willing to add some proffers to obtain their permits, as discussed at other meetings. They need to add one more to the list, that the large family cemetery in the middle of the property, proposed data property, is not destroyed or moved when the property is sold to a big corporation such as Microsoft or Amazon. The resolution needs to be added on and voted on by the Board of Supervisors before they can sign off on the permits for the project before it can be finalized. Just as a reference, in Mecklenburg, a family cemetery was removed by a large data center company without the family's permission, which caused a lot of conflict. Lastly, I feel members of the different boards, that includes IDA and the RIFA members, need to be more honest and upright with the residents of Pennsylvania County and provide more timely notifications of new projects that will impact their communities. People are so tired of, guess what? What's coming to our district next. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
That's all.
That's all we have. Would anybody else present like to speak from the public? Time is 6:20. We'll close the public hearing. You have a rebuttal, sir?
Clarification, yes, sir.
Okay.
Tom Gallagher for the applicant. I would just hit on two different things that concerns voiced, which we've heard before and we've tried to address, and I'll take them in reverse order. There is a cemetery. It's not part of the property that's being rezoned. There's a cemetery that's within the area. By state law, we can't do anything to that cemetery. And additionally, we've been in contact with Mrs. Webb, who is the title holder. It's titled in her name, although there's a number of descendants and families who have loved ones buried there. So we're not going to do anything with the cemetery that Mrs. Webb and the descendants don't sign off on. And right now, we'd have to provide access to it by law. Cemeteries do get moved. I never moved one and not really interested in moving a cemetery, but it does happen, and sometimes it's, and I think they moved a few, down at the mega site, they recently moved some. But in any event, and staff can confirm, it's a separate, the cemetery is located on a separate parcel, which we will not own and which we cannot deny access to or make any change to. The second thing, in terms of what's happening and development in general, we've understood these concerns for a number of years. Things are happening, and development is going to happen in different areas. I mean, in terms of the data center in this area, notwithstanding where they live there, it's a great location for it because it's basically the transmission lines bisect the property. So from an access standpoint, utilities and everything else. And additionally, we're zoned M2, so from a use standpoint, there are a lot of other things, and we proffered out the really obnoxious ones, but even other things like manufacturing and distribution, which would be more sound intensive than a data center. But I think as part of progress, and I understand change is difficult for everybody, and our philosophy is to work with the community to try and mitigate any impacts we might have, and we're always happy to engage in further conversation as we move forward. If we move forward, subject to this body's decision.
All right. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I want to clarify, make sure that we all understand what has been said tonight. I listed what I heard was adverse effects of this data center. One being lighting, two being noise. Of course, we just heard about the cemetery, which is not part, it's not being rezoned and not part of this, what we're discussing tonight. So I think we can eliminate that totally. The lighting has been addressed. It's part of the conditions that are part of the permit, if approved, that the lighting will be what they call dark sky compliant. I can't verify for sure what happened in Mecklenburg County, but it sounds like they did not comply with dark sky compliant lighting. And what that really means is the lighting is shielded from going up. It goes down, and the maximum wattage or whatever is 3,000, I believe, or not wattage, but whatever that word is, which is more or less like a warm bedroom light. Are there any questions about the lighting from the board? Do y'all understand the lighting? So I don't think lighting is going to be an issue for anybody. Also, noise. We've heard about noise. the Danville Regional Foundation sent some people out to Oregon recently and went to 2 data centers out in Oregon, and the report came back that they didn't hear anything. So I think that the improvement has been made in the construction of these things, but also it's in the condition that the ordinance, the zoning ordinance was updated to add data centers to the current zoning ordinance, not the one that's going to be possibly approved in November, but the current ordinance, which has the data center regulations, which include in those regulations that the noise at the property line cannot exceed more than 65 decibels. And that is, really, to be honest, if somebody's mowing the grass in your neighborhood, they're breaking the noise ordinance because it's louder than 65 decibels. So we need to understand what noise is. Are there any questions about the noise ordinance? It's already there. We have before us, there are 11 conditions. Are you familiar with the conditions that are as part of this permit? Which include transportation, the network doing analysis, the fire and emergency services, compliance with the laws, riparian buffer. Now, in number 5 of those conditions, it says on the site development plan for each phase of the property, the applicant will identify tree-safe areas and will maintain a minimum 30-foot vegetative buffer. The map shows a 150-foot buffer around the perimeter of this property. So I would like to change that to 150 foot right here to make it in line with what's been presented on the map. Security and fencing, water, sewer, construction access, lighting, all these are part of the permit if approved. And also, it follows the new data center regulations as part of the zoning ordinance. So are there any questions about these conditions from the board? Yes, sir.
If I may, just to clarify one item, Mr. Agnew can either correct me. With respect to the 150, there's setbacks versus the tree buffer, just to be clear in terms of there's the differentiation.
Well, it says on the site development plan for each phase of the property, the applicant will identify tree-safe areas and will maintain them at a minimum a 30-foot vegetative buffer on the perimeter of the property that adjoins property that is not included in the rezoning application.
Correct. So the 150, but there are sections where there are trees that are,
that would be part of the buffer.
What's that?
That would be part of a buffer where there are already trees.
Where there are already trees.
Right. But am I right? They're showing a 150-foot buffer
It is.
around the property. So what, am I reading the same verbiage?
Do you want to look at that? That was the site plan they submitted that he's referring to.
I guess clarification with respect to the obligation, like if there's 150 feet, but there's 60 feet of trees in there, we're not going to go in and plan on developing trees.
That would be up to the board.
It needs to be to me, it needs to be a 150-foot buffer all the way around this property. Now, you all chime in. If it's adjoining people's property.
Right. I guess it's, what I would say is the 150-foot setback on the entire property.
Okay. In this map right here, it shows a 150-foot vegetative buffer.
Okay.
And if I'm reading that, that means there's 150 feet of trees and shrubs and whatever. Is that right?
That's what's being shown, yes.
That's what's being shown.
Of undisturbed area. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So that's okay.
Okay. That's okay. I was just going to the tree planting part of it. Yes.
Right.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Just want to be sure we understand it.
It speaks of just 30 foot of vegetative buffer, which could be, I guess, weeds.
Yeah. Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Any discussion?
Back to he mentioned that there were certain uses that were proffered away that would normally be allowable under M2, but they proffered that they will not use those.
Right.
But that's not something we're dealing with tonight. That was proffered during the rezoning, is that?
That's correct.
Okay,
So
so
the only
that's a
thing that
done
you're
deal.
focusing on tonight is a special use permit for a data center. Any of those other uses, or most of those other uses would be by right uses. So that's why they did some additional proffers to reduce the by right uses in M2 to get rid of the really bad, impactful uses.
And if I understand that correctly, if a permit is not approved, then if they walk away from this, it's still zoned M2.
That's correct, and those proffers would still apply
The
to
proffers will still
any
apply.
future owners
So
or
the proffers
development.
follow the rezoning.
That's correct.
Okay, that's great. All right. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is an industrial area. The property seems suitable for it. They're speaking of using half the permitted area for the data centers. We all like our cell phones. We all like good communication, and these items have to be somewhere. And this is a busy section of the county. So I would recommend a positive motion.
Okay, we'll try a positive motion and see how it goes, okay? Whereas Anchorstone Advisors Sova LLC has petitioned the Board of Zoning Appeals for a special use permit for a data center complex, and whereas we find no substantial detriment to adjacent property, that the character of the zoning district will not be changed thereby, and that such use will be in harmony with the purpose and intent of the ordinance, and I move that the special use permit be granted with the following conditions, which are attached to the packet. And honestly, there's 3 pages of conditions, which I will not read word for word, but the applicant is familiar with these conditions. So the motion, that's the motion. Do I hear, who made the motion? Alan Easley makes the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stone. Cast your vote.
And just clarification, is this the conditions as they are written by staff, or were there any changes to these?
As
As staff recommended, okay.
It's written by
That's
staff.
right. Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you for coming out. Meeting's adjourned.